Hey everybody, I'm so glad you're gathered together in your small group right now to discuss and talk about the message in week one of This Is My Story entitled God Interrupts. And I'm going to throw out a few questions for you to consider discussing together if you haven't already done these already. When you think about stories, we all love a good story. I don't know anyone that doesn't sometimes get wrapped up in just a very good story, whether it's a story of heroism, a dramatic story of a comeback, a story of a hero. We love good stories. And so maybe just to kind of break the ice a little bit with your group, you can go around and just share a true story that you've heard recently, maybe just a quick 1 minute description of a story that maybe you've recently read or you watched a movie about it and just what impact it had on you. So go ahead and hit the pause button and discuss that right now. Now, true stories are awesome, and you got to, if you watch the entire video of my interview with Justin Carabello, founder of Carabello Coffee. What an incredible story he has, and I just thought it was powerful. Maybe you can pause and discuss kind of what you thought about his story, maybe one or two big truths or just cool moments that impacted you as you got to see his story. But it was a great segue into telling the story we find in John chapter 9, the story of a man who was born blind. And I love that chapter in the Bible because it's really intriguing. I mean, this miracle happened, and a lot of times when you read the Gospels in the New Testament, you'll see God, Jesus, do a miracle, and it just describes the miracle, and that's amazing, and then it goes on. But this miracle had a fallout to it that people could not believe what happened. And in fact, the religious leaders tried to help people not believe that it would happen. And they wanted to discredit Jesus. They wanted to gather proof and evidence that, no, Jesus didn't do this, or at least he's not the Messiah as people were claiming he might be. So they interrogated this guy and interrogated him and were trying to just get him to just say that maybe he wasn't healed, or if he was, it definitely wasn't Jesus who did it, or if it was Jesus, this Jesus was a sinner and not the Son of God. And there was just that amazing drop the mic moment where they demanded him to give glory to God and to tell the truth and claim that this man named Jesus was actually a sinner. And the man says, whether this guy is a sinner or not, I don't know. But this is what I do know. I do know I once was blind, but now I see. And you just couldn't refute that. That was his story. His story was irrefutable because it was his story. It was his experience. And I love the courage to not back down and say, this is not what happened. I'm going to change it. I'm afraid of these guys. He stuck with the truth. He stuck with his story. And it resulted in a transformed life. Not only did he see physically, he was able to see spiritually. And I would also argue that his sharing of that story resulted in others being able to see spiritually as well. So I want you to think about a few questions that you can discuss together in your group. For instance, this story was powerful because God interrupted this man's life. He was born blind, grew up to be a man, begged on the streets, but then one day Jesus made a mud pie and stuck it on his eyes, told him to go wash it off in a pool, and his life was changed forever. Tell your group of maybe a time when God interrupted your story. And as you think about that, think about also as you discuss together and you've shared maybe some interruptions that God has done in your life, what would be a good summary of that? Maybe even not that interruption, because maybe you've had multiple interruptions. This man was able to sum up his story in one brief sentence. What would be your one sentence to summarize your story? All right, let me give you one more thing to ask and think about and discuss in your group before you pray together. we gave a next step at the end of the worship service, the end of the message, and that next step was to give God authorship of your life. I almost imagine me holding a pen and writing my own pages of my own story and just trying to write that, trying to do this, trying to do that, trying to accomplish this, trying to accomplish that, trying to enjoy this, trying to enjoy that. And that God just interrupts and wants to take hold of that pen and write a new chapter, write something different. He interrupts our story. Those interruptions are powerful, but sometimes we just want to hang on to the pen. We want to keep writing our own story. The response to the interruption is crucial. I guess the blind man could have refused to go wash the mud off his eyes, or perhaps he could have cowered in fear when the religious leaders interrogated him. What do you need to do right now to fully give authorship of your life to God? What's holding you back personally? After you take time to share your answers to that question, go ahead and close in prayer as a group, and not only share prayer requests of other things going on in your life right now, maybe some people you know who are hurting, maybe some stuff you're dealing with, but pray for each other about those things that you listed that are holding you back from allowing God to have full authorship of your life. And also take time to give thanks to God for the interruptions, because those interruptions are what make your story powerful and will make your story capable of changing someone else's life. Thanks for meeting together as a group. Keep doing life together, and God bless you guys. Take care.